we had two significant incidents that occurred simultaneously. We had a shooting, and then we also had a robbery suspect. During the incident, you took charge and you showed exceptional leadership. You did an excellent job managing and allocating the available resources, along with apprehending both of the suspects. As a result, incredible work. The patrol officers and yourself located both individuals and were able to apprehend them. You and the patrol officers did an outstanding job, and I want to recognize your hard work. I commend you on a job well done. Keep up the great work. So, outstanding job. Way to keep Middletown safe and surrounding communities. We have a nice plaque for you. I'm sorry it's red, but they were out of the blue colors. So, but congratulations and great job.
Next, we have a proclamation to give for a business who has turned 100 years old this year. So if we could have the Morgan family, I think John and Ben, and if there's any other family members, if you guys want to come up, I've got a proclamation to read with you guys. Let's get going on this. If you want to come on over here. How great is it that we have a small business in our community 100 years old? I don't know how many of them exist in Middletown, but I sure hope we can grow the number of them that have a 100-year anniversary, and maybe have a proclamation on the regular up here for more small businesses turning that age. So I'm going to read this with you guys tonight, and we're so glad that you could be here.
Thank you.
Whereas it is a great honor and pleasure to celebrate the 100th anniversary of B.D. Morgan and Company. Since 1923, through 4 generations, the Morgan family has served Butler County and the surrounding areas with reliable commercial and industrial construction, contracting and engineering services, and whereas the professionals at B.D. Morgan and Company see the project from beginning to end, from soil testing, surveying, clearing of land and excavating, engineering and design, to drafting of plans, construction, setting of machinery, interior design, landscaping and maintenance after you take occupancy, a true turnkey service. And whereas for the last century, B.D. Morgan and Company has a history of treating their customers with integrity and personalized attention on each project. That's the way B.D. Morgan did business when he founded the company in 1923, and it's the way they continue to do business and honor his legacy today. And whereas Butler and Warren County businesses trust B.D. Morgan and Company as their local dependable building service, and the city of Middletown, Ohio is grateful for our strong local businesses that create jobs, boost our economy, and preserve our community. We wish them continued success for the next 100 years and beyond. Now therefore I, Nicole Condry, by the powers vested in me as mayor of the city of Middletown, do hereby proclaim July 18th, 2023 as a day fitting to celebrate the 100th anniversary of B.D. Morgan and Company. Congratulations, guys. Thank you. I always like when we have a lot of positive things to celebrate at council. Okay, the next item on the agenda is consent agenda. We'll have Ms. Skink present that for us, please.
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes from July 19th and July 26th, 2022. To receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes: the Architectural Review Board from December 6th, 2022, the Airport Commission from February 13th, 2023, the Historic Commission from March the 16th, 2023, the Board of Health from the June 13th and June the 20th, 2023, to confirm the personnel appointments of Logan Dooley and Ty Revis Hill to the positions of Corrections Officer in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, to confirm the promotional appointments of Michael Voltaggio in the position of Fire Apparatus Operator in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire, and Michael Jones to the position of Fire Lieutenant in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire, and to appoint the following commission members: Will Parsons to the Planning Commission and Michaela Perkins to the Historic Commission, and to receive and file an oath of office for Kaylee Moreland.
I would move that the matters listed under the consent agenda be considered routine and enacted by one motion and one vote of consent.
Second?
Ms. King, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to a pinning ceremony. I think probably a reason why we have a totally full house tonight. We have both police and fire here to celebrate in different ways, so we're grateful to have everybody here. Probably the police already left because they got theirs done, huh? Come on down, chief.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. As customary, when we have a new membership or a new member of our leadership get promoted, we like to bring them before council and introduce them to you, as well as their family. Tonight's no different. So Mike Jones is being promoted to lieutenant tonight. Will serve in operations. He's here tonight with his wife Haley, his daughter Paisley, son Connor, his mother Lisa, his father Andy, his father-in-law Dan, as well as his mother-in-law Kelly. Haley will be doing the badge pinning tonight. You guys can come on up. Just a little background on Mike. Graduated from Fairfield High School in Butler Tech's fire program in 2013. I've been working several part-time departments. After that, graduated from UC's paramedic program 2015. He was hired in Middletown 2016. Promoted to apparatus operator 2021. He's a member of the Butler County Technical Rescue Team. He has certifications as a fire instructor, fire inspector, ops level instructional collapse. He has rope rescue certification, confined space rescue certifications, as well as many more. Very experienced, very talented firefighter. Very proud of his promotion. So I have his wife, Penny. Congratulations, Mike.
Good job, Mike.
Thank you, Council. Could you hear me?
Is that it, Chief? Just one? Or just one? Yes. I thought you did.
Okay, next on the agenda this evening, we have citizen comments. I believe we have 3 citizen comment cards we received this evening. So we'll ask the individuals to come on up to the dais and state their name and address for the record, and we have 4 minutes for each. The first we have is Kelly Kubar, followed by Candace Keller, and then Abdul Ahmad.
Can you hear me?
Can you flip that mic the other way? Yeah, I moved it when I did the proclamation.
It's always too close to me, so is that?
I think that's perfect. Yep.
I'm Kelly Kuvar. I live at 2615 Worcester Place. I was pulled over on Thursday at 3:30 p.m. for flipping someone off. So that's an issue. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Candace Keller.
Candace Keller, 3430 Central Avenue, Middletown, Ohio. To say that what I saw on June 23rd on Governor Square was disturbing would be an understatement. More than half of the audience were minors and saw and heard all that went on. You would never see this go on in Westchester or Liberty Township or Fairfield Township. This is not the best of what our city has to offer. I won't waste time by asking you to define obscenity. It's not your place to define obscenity. nor is it our police chief's job to define it. It is your place to create law to stop any public nuisance that is harmful to our children. What I saw was an affront to women. Sexist public behavior condoned by this council is beneath the dignity of the office that you hold. You're not addressing it is addressing it. You're not speaking is speaking. At the microphone, and I stayed the entire 7 to 9 o'clock time period, the drag queen mentioned how much he loved being given colored plastic bracelets from children, and he received hundreds of them. I heard laughing go across the crowd and told my companion, "What is up with the colored bracelets?" After seeking information on the bracelets, we discovered that different colors mean different things. Green meaning I will give you oral sex, blue meaning I will give you anal sex, and this is common practice at drag shows. Are you okay with this? Then the drag queen referred to an O-ring. I again heard laughing among the crowd when I investigated the meaning of that term. An O-ring is a sexual apparatus used by men having sodomite sex to hold their anus open during intercourse. This was said from a microphone in front of children. My question is, are you okay with this? While many of the children may not have understood the connotation, many adults there did, and now you understand it. And I'm asking you, are you okay with this? Many of you on council own businesses and are from family-owned businesses. You attended Christian schools and Christian universities. Shame on you. Of note, Vice Mayor Ninny, you read a resolution honoring an event that is just another mockery of traditional family. I would caution you, Vice Mayor Ninny, recognizing an event simply because your business partner chooses to live an alternative lifestyle is unprofessional at best and improper at worst. It shows favoritism to one element of our city, and worst of all, it can be very, very problematic ethically. Where else do you see grown men shaking their genitals in front of children who are handing them money? Where do you see children giving money to performers? This is called grooming. And I'm asking you again, are you okay with this? The majority of the cars parked here were not even from Butler County. They don't even live here, and they don't vote here. And if they did vote, they wouldn't vote for you. In fact, I doubt that they vote at all. But we do vote, and we voted for many of you. What in the world are you afraid of? Let me remind you that our county sheriff does not make law, nor does our prosecutor, nor does the police chief, or any law enforcement officer, but you do. You are lawmakers, and you have the power to change Middletown. I'm asking you, because you did take an oath on the Constitution to uphold the laws of this country and perform accordingly, that we are watching you. And I'm asking you not to lower yourself to supporting an event that is bent on destroying the innocence of children. Please have the courage to suffer the contempt of the sophisticated world, in the words of Antonin Scalia, and to be a fool for Christ. Many of you went to Christian schools and universities. That is what makes for great leaders. And I'm asking you to have the courage and the wisdom to be regarded as stupid by a community that finds what happened on the 23rd repugnant. Our children have got to be respected. And I'm asking you again, and I expect all of you to address this at the end of this time. Are you okay with what happened that evening, based on what I'm telling you?
Next up, we have Abdul Ahmad. I think I saw him here. There he is.
My name is Abdul Shakur Ahmed. I live at 220 Park Manor, apartment 7U. I would like to say peace to the commission and the mayor and everyone else that's here. It's a tough one to follow there. I'm here to share Middletown's world history, U.S. history, county history, and who we are as history reads us. And it's related to what we have here as the Port Middletown Plaza. I don't know if many of you have been out there to really walk that area and see what that history is saying. I want to share with you that it says there, Ohio and Erie Canal and Miami Erie Canal. Canals were built in Ohio to provide a better way to transport goods to the eastern markets. 2 major canals were built connecting the Ohio River to Lake Erie, and Ohio and Erie Canal running from Portsmouth to Cleveland, and the Miami-Erie Canal from Cincinnati to Toledo. On July the 21st, 1825, Governor DeWitt Clinton of New York State broke ground at Middletown for the Miami Canal. 2 years later, on July the 1st, 1827, water from the Great Miami River was let into the canal, and on July the 4th, the canal packet boat Samuel Foyer, owned by Middletonian Robert E. Campbell, made the first trip on the canal. The 250-mile Miami and Erie Canal was completed in 1845, costing over $8 million. Port Middletown, located at 3rd Street, now Central Avenue, was the main port along the Miami and Erie Canal. A scale was located there and tolls were collected. Canal boats were designed to haul up to 80 tons, pulled usually by mules. They traveled at approximately 3 miles per hour. What we have here in Middletown is a destination for people to come and see what's downtown and find out what the city was about. So I've been sharing this information. The Historical Society, last year, we observed this observation of the holiday, July the 21st. One of the prominent Middletonians in some history that I've researched from Butler County stated that this was the greatest day Middletown ever saw before or since that day. What we need to know is this history is, like I said, world history, U.S. history, Butler County history, as well as Middletown history. So my goal is to make sure that we come to know these things, that we visit these sites. And if we look at the state tourism guide, our mural is in all of that. So that corner right there, and there's some good food at that corner also, Miss Jade's. And but our happiness is that we are who we need to be as far as looking out for not just ourselves, but for others, and to invite them to come and experience the good things in Middletown. By the way, this weekend is the Hot Air Balloon Festival on the 22nd of July. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you always sharing our history with us. Next, that brings us to council comments. We'll start with Mr. Farrell.
Thanks, Mayor. A few things tonight. First off, thanks to Tony and Mike for all you guys do for the city and all of public safety, public works, everyone that's involved in running the city day to day. This weekend, as was noted, is the Balloon Festival, and talking to David Pierce, who runs that, council approved the Wi-Fi, whenever that was, 6 months ago roughly. But what's cool about this is on July 4th, we had all the people that came to the park. We were able to gather the information. And now Dave in the city has the ability to see who's coming into the city, where they're from, these types of things, so we can go about creating sort of a strategic plan, which we've never really had before. So I think that investment in technology should hopefully pay off in the future and trying to bring people here. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And then the second thing is, we'll get into it obviously during new business. I've got some things I'd like to create, but obviously a lot of people saw that I put a Facebook post out there about fire stations and hiring more city employees. So that's something probably that should be touched upon more in new business. But the thing I'll say about it is it was never any harm to the firefighters. What I want to do is give people, in my opinion, we have to put people on the streets, whether it's firefighters, whether it's police, and I just can't continue to let the city go in the debt. That's my opinion, and we'll get more into that, but I realized what I said did not make everybody happy, so I just kind of wanted to address that up front. But everything I've ever done is to try to get more people out there, give staff more help, those types of things. So like I said, we'll get into it, but just wanted to put that out there. So thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. The name change came just in time for my husband's birthday today, so I'll wish him a happy birthday. I also want to extend my gratitude to all of the employees that we have in the city of Middletown, especially our, our public safety officers and our public works people who help make a lot of the events and things in the city happen. I did comment and address the Pride event at Middletown in my comments from the previous meeting, so if you'd like to watch back last week's meeting, you can do that for my feelings on the Pride event, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Yes, thank you. Did want to extend my appreciation to Officer Gibson. Certainly appreciate his bravery and service to the city, and he got to be recognized tonight, but there's certainly things that go on in this city every week and every month that maybe don't get recognized that possibly should. So I certainly want to give a shout out to our public works, our fire and police, public safety, for all the work that they do that maybe they don't get to come up here and be recognized, but that doesn't mean that we don't know of the excellent work that you're doing. And then second, just wanted to extend my congratulations to Mr., I'll probably not get the name right, Vitaggio and Lieutenant Jones on their promotions, and we appreciate their work for the city. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes, Mayor, I'll keep it short. I'll save most of it for new business, but congrats to Tony Gibson and Mike Jones on their awards tonight and their recognition. I think that's awesome. You guys do great work, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. And I wanted to send a congratulations and thank you to city staff for all the successful community events that they continue to put on. I really feel like they are helping, and we as a community are helping to strengthen that family nucleus and rebuild it back up in Middletown, and it's exciting to see, and I see them getting a lot of traction, so that makes me really happy. I'm grateful for all the work staff is putting in, and I think the Wi-Fi also is going to help communicate back out a lot of those events that are going on, so that's one of the goals of that as well. And then I also thought I'd mention that I'm bringing one more zip code here to the Ohio Challenge. It's from Iowa, and my parents are here tonight watching the council meeting in person for once. So they usually watch on YouTube religiously, so I'm welcoming them to Middletown, and they're going to come see the Ohio Challenge this weekend as well. So that's all I have this evening. Mr. Lawley.
Thank you, Mayor Convery, and members of City Council. Can you hear me? There we go. I've seen two pieces of legislation tonight, and I thought, wow, I'm going to have a record. But we have some very important things to go over here in the city manager's report. And first off, I would like to give council an update on the Middletown Event Center. To remind everybody, this is our project that is we're doing in conjunction with Warren County, Woodard Development, and some other partners out of Arizona. I'd like to invite Martin Russell, the Assistant County Administrator, soon to be the County Administrator, right? Congratulations, Martin, and Todd Duplain with Woodard Development up. And they're going to give us an update on the project at the Middletown Event Center, 122 in Union Road.
Good evening, City Council. As Paul said, I'm Todd Duplain. I'm a principal with Woodard Development. It's good to be back with you again. I enjoy being here in large part because I'm pretty sure we're on the precipice of what I'm going to call a very transformational project for the city. I appreciate the opportunity to give an update, and I think you're going to hear from both myself and Martin what's been happening the last 6 months, and all of it is very, very positive. We feel very good about where we're at and where we're heading. Real quickly, as you may recall, the goal of this development that Paul mentioned is to create a sustainable Class A mixed-use regional asset that benefits the residents of the city of Middletown, Warren County, and all of Southwest Ohio. To that end, one of the things I wanted to do in this brief presentation is give you, I'm going to say, the 4 or 5 themes that we've experienced with this project since the beginning of the year. And these themes tell the story of why our team is so bullish on this project. And the first one of those themes is we need to listen to the market because it's telling us something very important. And when I say the market, I mean users, food and beverage operators, hotel operators, businesses, residents. We have listened to the market, and the market is telling us something very important. So what is the market telling us? It's telling us this project is in demand. People and businesses want to be here. And our story that we're putting out there is resonating with folks. Of all the projects that we have going on, this is one of the most active developments. We get calls virtually every other day for people, businesses that are interested, that want to be here. Now, not all of those will come to fruition, I can guarantee you that, but certainly some of them will. And again, as a litmus test for me, of all the projects we have going on, this is probably one with certainly close, if not the most activity. That is a very strong statement. What I want to do with Martin's help is go through why we continue to be bullish on this. And he's going to start, if he would come up now, with just an update on the anchor tenant, which is the Event Center.
Thanks, Todd. Nice to see Mayor and Council. I always have to remember that I can't call you commissioners, and I was with the commissioners earlier today, so at some point I'm going to do that slip. So I want to thank Paul for the acknowledgement and look forward to many years of continuing working with you in the current role, and then January 1 in my new role. I'm going to probably have to speak a little bit more broadly because as my role as Executive Director of the Warren County Port Authority, I'm in several non-disclosures agreements with individuals and groups that are very interested in the Event Center. But I can tell you those range from youth sports organizations that are in the area. Those are with groups that have interest in doing items here on a consistent basis from a tournament perspective. It also deals with folks that are in the educational space. It deals with individuals and organizations, companies, if you will, that are looking for franchise in the larger sports space. We're talking entertainment. This team that we have, and Nate and Paul, along with Todd and various others that are not here this evening, have been working countless. I'm going to use air quotes just for the mere fact here, is that this facility, we're more than 2 years out of actually being able to use this. And with the air quotes of pre-leasing or letters of intent that have been provided to this project, we're already nearly 65% booked. So when we're out there listening to the market says that it wants a facility in between the Dayton and Cincinnati markets, which we have, which is in Warren County, which is in the city of Middletown, where they can bring their kids, they can bring themselves for a whole host of different entertainment and community events. I think what Todd will share with you is that because of this anchor tenant and the robust nature of how we are activating this space, that is helping in all of the areas around. This will play off of each other extremely well. Our goal is to continue to work throughout the summer and to get those increased as we work towards our bond financing through the Port Authority later this year. We actually, from an actual facility perspective, have gone out for both RFQ and RFP for design build firms to help construct this. We actually received those RFPs back on Friday, and we're in the evaluation stage of those. So we are actively looking to build this. We are actively working with folks to make sure that the space is being utilized, and I can say here right now that we are on our way, and we are very bullish on the fact that people want to be here, they want to utilize this, they want to be in the city of Middletown, they want to be in Warren County, and they want to make this the destination of Southwest Ohio.
Thanks, Martin. So theme number one, listen to the market. At this point, both Martin and I are very confident about the marketability of this project. Theme number 2, feed opportunities. And what I mean by this is, there are times certainly in our organization and probably for all of us where a door is cracked open and there's an opportunity on the other side. Martin and I both firmly believe that this is the time and this is the opportunity for this city and the county. And I want to use the city of Dayton as an example because it's something my group was intimately involved with. Back in the late 1990s, no one was investing in the city of Dayton. The city of Dayton wasn't investing in the city of Dayton. Then in 2000, the city leadership went out on a limb and got involved in the Dayton Dragons, and they built a stadium. Dayton started investing in themselves. They went on to purchase vacant land and buildings, and then they turned those properties over to developers with the requirement that the developers build Class A products, whether it was residential, office, retail, etc. When the doors started to open, the city leadership stepped in, and the result was, quite frankly, astounding. Here's some pictures. Over 500,000 square feet of new office space, 100,000 square feet of retail and restaurants, 2,000 additional residential units, 4 new hotels, in total over $2 billion in investment for a city that was really struggling. More than ever, I see cities playing a very proactive role in the real estate development process. I commend the city for doing that here. You guys have been a leader in this project since day one. It is what the best cities are doing, and there are no guarantees, but I will tell you, in all the municipalities that we work with, because we do this thing and we're doing it with about 4 different municipalities, we have yet to see where this hasn't worked out, both economically and quality of life for the residents. So feeding opportunities, we feel very strongly this is a good opportunity. The next theme after feeding opportunities is obviously it's got to be starving problems. There are risks with any kind of development. And this team, particularly these folks behind me, have put together what I think is a very good risk mitigation plan for all of us, including the city. That's really 3-pronged. 1, we have the right people. We have a team with the county, with the city, with CCP, who is the Arizona arena developer, and with Woodard Development that have experience, capital, and relationships. And of those 3, I'm going to say relationships are the most important, because the reality is you buy a piece of land and it takes relationships to bring food and beverage operators, to bring the types of users that Martin was talking about as relates to the arena. And we have a team that has done this exact same thing many times and can call on those relationships. And right now when we're calling, we're getting very positive feedback. So starving problems is about risk mitigation, and the first prong of that is people. The second prong of that is exploiting competitive advantages, and what I mean by that is this property and this development has several unique advantages that we intend to take full advantage of. 1, we have an anchor tenant that will produce over 425,000 visitors a year. That is a lot of people that will feed off the businesses in Middletown. 2, we've got organizations, met with one today, that want to capitalize off serving 2 markets, Cincinnati and Dayton, in one site, Middletown. 3, we've got 2 neighboring hospital systems and a demographic growth, particularly to the east of 75, that we intend to capitalize on. The third prong of the starving problems theme is alignment. On this development, whether it's the city, the county, Woodard, or CCP, the 4 major entities, no one profits until we produce a successful development. So there is an incredible alignment and an incredible amount of shared risk where we're all pulling in the right direction. I was particularly proud of the graphic I put up there, if you see that. Last theme that I want to go over, last 2 themes, is this is, in my opinion, a heads you win, tails you don't lose opportunity, and I want to tell you why. When we do this development, the quality of life benefits to the city, the economic benefits to the city are significant. We firmly believe that the users that we need to bring to create unique opportunities, whether it's shopping, dining, or residential, we're going to bring. The economic benefits when we bring those users are real in real estate taxes, sales taxes, payroll taxes, jobs, and housing. On the flip side, let's just look at it from an entirely different angle. What if none of this comes to fruition, which is highly unlikely? This is my tails you don't lose. The reality is that you are buying a piece of property that you're exchanging cash for property, an asset for an asset. In my opinion, and I think a lot of real estate folks would share this, it is very likely that this property you're buying is going to be worth in excess of your investment. It's also very likely that this property you're buying will increase over time. This is an appreciating asset. Dayton and Cincinnati have been coming together for a long time. That is a trend that is not stopping. And so the reality is, I think what you're buying is going to be very valuable. Lastly, you get to control your destiny. If nothing were to happen on this site, you have control of use, users, design, timing. Again, this is a game that we see a lot of municipalities playing in now, and it's working, quite frankly. So to close, I've been a little long-winded. I appreciate the time. There's much to be done, and the feasibility for certain aspects of the projects are still up in the air. There are no guarantees, but we have made tremendous progress since we last met. One, the market is telling us this project is very viable. Two, the risks on this project are being mitigated through a combination of having the right team, the right strategy, and aligning risk and return. And three, when we're successful, there is a tremendous return on investment for the city, its residents, the county, its residents, and the broader community. So with that, I think Mark and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, first of all, I'm pleasantly not surprised, but happy with your rosy outcome and the look on this project. It's looking really good. I'm glad you guys are thinking that it's moving forward and has a lot of support. 65% already, that's astounding.
No, I think it is. I think it to Todd's point about listening to the market, I think that we are hitting a market that is desperate for this pad space. And there's a significant amount of items that are out in the community that we haven't necessarily even broached yet. So there's a certain thing, obviously, from a pro forma perspective that we want to get to as far as the utilization of the facility. And I would say that being 2 years out, we're pretty bullish on that we're going to sit there and get there. And a lot of what we have to do in this vein is be able to go to the underwriters and demonstrate to them that we have folks that are committed to coming. And so we really kind of talked internally that this summer was going to be that time that we had to package all of that up to be able to give it to those folks to evaluate, and that's what we're currently doing. Again, with the gentlemen that are sitting behind us, we have a call every Friday where we get updates. And it's very neat to see the progression of those calls and the things that we've been talking about for a year or so to actually see a lot of that starting to come to fruition. It's very neat to sit there and see.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that I think we said it last time, was what sets us apart from other developers is your guys' track record is impeccable. And when you look at the things that you guys have done and that what you're doing now, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. I mean, it's not like you guys haven't done anything. You guys have done some incredible things all over.
Thank you for saying that, and I really do mean this. I will tell you, in all the projects I've been at, both at the county and city level, the commitment, the engagement, to get everyone on a call, city folks, county folks, every Friday, I've never seen it before. It's phenomenal. So it is right when I go down and Martin senses I'm going down, he gives me a big swift kick, and we get back going, and probably a little bit of vice versa. So,
I guess the question I get most often, which I'm sure you guys would love to know the answer to, but when's it going to start and when's it going to be done?
Yeah, the plan, if everything holds, when you go back to the map that was there previously, I mean, we know that Todd's outside development, Woodard's outside development can't all be done in one fell swoop. I mean, that's going to sit there and take time. And I think, quite frankly, Todd will sit there and tell you that because of the anchor tenant and the success of that, that allows, I think, his group to really be, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but extra picky on what goes in there because there's going to be such that drive and demand. Relative to the event center, if things stay on the trajectory that they are, we look to have a window where this would be open and operational most likely, I'll just say kind of midsummer of 2025. Obviously, construction schedules we'll have to sit there and look at. But I would tell you there is a group that we are working with as an end user that would really like to have that summer of 25 be open because they have full bore fall of 2025. And I think if that comes to fruition, not only the center, but what they want to sit there and do, you will start seeing a significant amount of draw of outside people coming here based off what they do. And so when you talk about, your parents coming from, I think you said Idaho or
Iowa, close.
Iowa, sorry. You're going to see more of that.
I'll just tag along real quickly. So succinctly, the idea or the plan right now is construction of the public infrastructure spring, summer next year. Then the vertical construction certainly on the arena would dovetail that at some point in the fall with a completion of 2025. Our portion of the development, which is everything but the arena, there will certainly be at least a building or two that will be under construction while the public improvements are being built, with opening, again, I would say in the spring of 2025. As Martin said, there will be certain parcels, I'll call it keystone parcels, that we will probably be fairly selective on. The Middle Street, which is called Event Promenade, if you can see that, there's two parcels there that are kind of the front entryway. We're going to wait for something special on those. We could have sold those 10 times over by now. You'd be upset with me, and I'd be upset with me if we selected some of those people. So we're going to find someone hopefully pretty special for one or both of those parcels, and that may take some time. Once this arena's open, once this thing gets going, at that point, I won't say I can sit at a table and just take purchase orders, but my job becomes a little bit easier.
Just go ahead, Martin.
No, I just was going to say, as anecdotal, and Todd can go in, is that his firm, Woodard, went out to ICSC, which is a conference out in Vegas that strictly deals with a lot of retailers and those items. And I asked him specifically, and there was a high demand for this topic, this brand out there. So, I mean, we're getting local interest, we're getting more on the national scale interest. So it again is something that I think obviously we're excited about.
Just two comments other than thanking you all for being here and give us an update. Todd, love your last answer, because I think my council colleagues know that's kind of my approach. I'd rather get it right than get it done quick. So I really appreciate that thought. And then the second comment is really just more for staff. If, and it sounds like this is going to happen, what's next? So we heard about, all the demand and meeting the market, and that there is a lot of demand. I would challenge us to think 6, 9, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years down the road, and how do we position the city with the acreage around to take advantage of this development and what maybe can't fit on this land, but can fit on the land around it. And Martin, we might need your help with that at some point as well. So
We've had a little bit of that discussion, and I see that in the picture in the future.
No, I mean, absolutely. I think that, as I said earlier in my opening comments, is that in the current role and my future role, and our staff who's a part of the team, Matt Schnipke and Candace Miller, that aren't here today, is I think they're going to work with your staff and myself included to make sure this entire region. I look at One Exit South as an example, and the Port Authority has been a part of the outlet mall to distribution facilities to racinos to other distribution. We want to mimic that here and be a partner with you in every step of the way. So how we sit there and look at that and envision that to go out, we'll be here.
Hey, Mayor, do you think if you could do a special proclamation if they get us a Chick-fil-A? I mean, I think it's worth it, a bonus or something.
Right, that is the first thing people asked me when I became mayor, so if you can go ahead and deliver on that. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go, Martin.
That's Todd's part.
Yeah.
Already got it written.
I've heard you loud and clear, and we would love to see that too. We might not put them on that main boulevard, but we'd like to see them. We just need a big site for their 3 drive-thrus.
I have a branding and identity question for you guys. I know we've been referencing this as the Middletown Event Center project. Is that a name that's staying? Are there plans to rename?
So what we've kind of called this loosely as far as the entire development, because we like, as we go out and have conversations with folks, right now we've just called it, the whole thing called Renaissance Point. Doesn't have to stay, it's just something that we put as a placeholder. One of the items still yet to come relative to the event center is when you have a facility like this, there is a tremendous amount of opportunities for sponsorships.
Right.
And so those conversations are probably fairly shortly coming. Obviously with people that would make sense because they're in close proximity to this, to folks that are regional. So I think there is probably a yet to be determined as to what it'll be called. Because an event center of this size, there's multiple. There could be somebody who wants to name the entire facility, or they might want to individually go down to pads to some specific board on one of the, so there's going to be a lot of those conversations. So Renaissance Point, a lot yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Great, well, we're excited, guys. We're here for you and with you. Let us know if you need anything from us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, next on the agenda is a presentation by App Architect. We asked them to come tonight to give us a presentation on just to go over some things on the new fire stations, talk about some things, building new versus remodel, and what we're faced with in some of those decisions. So I'd like to introduce Tim Beeman to come up and begin his presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you guys again. We were here back in March to give you our first update, and I have Tony Budke with Pepper Construction here this evening. So we're the team that you've hired to make this happen with the fire stations, and I want to give you an update on. We want to give you an update on that, as well as City Manager Mr. Lawley said, we were asked to do some background and go and look at some other alternatives. And so we've had about a week to do that, so I'm going to give you some of our professional feedback on that. So our agenda is that we're going to give you an update. We're going to then go through some different scenarios quickly on renovating Station 81, renovating Station 83 headquarters, or delay building the 4th station as some options here. And then there are some action items that are needed at this point because we're on a schedule. We proposed the schedule. We want to show that to you just to give you an update here. So this shows the schedule that I brought to the table, our firm brought to the table when we were interviewed and hired to do this project. And we are, excuse me, on that schedule. So as you can, what's laid out here is that we have certain phases that we go through. Design development is DD, CD is our construction documents. Site work for all the stations, we plan to do all that. We're ready to start that. We've got the construction phase of the first 2 stations and then the construction on 81 and 85. So the red arrow shows where we are right now. We're at the very end of design development, and our plan all along has been to get pricing in for the construction of the 4 sites, so we could begin to tackle all 4 of those at the same time. And so that pricing has come in, and we are happy to report that we're just under budget on that initial piece. There's other elements that we also got pricing on because of very long lead times, and that's emergency generators, which are typically 65 weeks of waiting time for generators now. So we're recommending that those are all pre-purchased, what would be part of the site work package, and also mechanical equipment. So some of the bigger pieces of equipment, also sometimes 36 weeks, 40 weeks to get that equipment. So we're trying to be proactive to purchase that, have the city purchase that, and lock in those prices. So we are at the cusp of there's a GMP1, which is a guaranteed maximum price that we would like to have awarded at that point in order for us to get started in September on construction. And then we would then begin the construction of 83 and 82. After we get done with the CDs, we need to bid all that, and we would then have final pricing. So we are at a stage, and we're going to get back into this here in a minute at the end, so we can talk through the action items. So as I stated, these were the numbers that were presented to you back in March in terms of the total costs, and we're at that point right now. We're maintaining that. those costs at the moment, so we're happy to report that. And we'll talk about that more. Here's the breakdown of those stations individually. 26,676 was the number we presented back in March. So keep that in mind, because I want to make a lot of references to those numbers where we stand right now. So fortunately, as I mentioned, I was asked about a week ago, last Monday, to say, hey, let's look at some other alternatives potentially, and then just see what that means in terms of renovation versus new construction, and also potentially of delaying maybe the fourth station. So back in 2010, I had some help, thank goodness. In 2010, the city of Middletown hired a firm, one of our competitors actually, to do a study and to look at just that, renovating Station 81. Station 82 was proposed as a new building. Station 83 was looked at as a renovation. What was that? It was a 5-station model back then, and they were recommending to go to a 4-station model. We're already there. So at that point, when all that work that was looked at in that study in 2010 was $10.6 million to $11.9 million was the amount of money that recommended that was going to need to be spent to fulfill those goals. If we look at 2023 costs, that's $26.5 to about $29,750. That's the range. It's about 2.6 times the cost of what it was back then, okay? So remember, $26.5 is where we are. This was to renovate 2 stations and build 2 new stations. So I presented this slide back in March. This is the lens of which we look at as far as designing new facilities. It's these 7 elements: the station ergonomics, which is minimizing response times and accommodating the mixed gender employees that are coming into the fire service, and we'll continue to do that. Cancer prevention, how we deal with decontamination and exhaust from apparatus and equipment. We have tornado shelters now that are required by code that have to be integrated in every station. Integrating training opportunities whenever possible in the stations. Addressing employee mental wellness and mitigating post-traumatic stress. Value-driven decision-making, number 6, because we're looking at 50-year buildings plus. And then number 7, essential facility and building code requirements, which are always going to be there. And we have a building code that's going to be changing here, and there'll be a 2024 building code coming into place, and it's becoming a lot more stringent for energy and ADA. We have to have bigger spaces now to accommodate folks that are disabled. So on existing Fire Station 81, we took a look at that, and this is captured from this study in 2010. They recommended back then that it was the work that was going to be done was about $4.5 billion today to about 4.875, okay, for that work in 2023. So what we're looking at is what can we do to maybe increase the life of that building for maybe another 15 to 30 years at a minimum. So it's about how to take the existing facility and extend its life, its useful life. So in addition to the things that were recommended back then, we now have to add, because it's a 2-story station, we would have to add an elevator, because then that's a federal law. We would have to, essentially, our recommendation would be to modify the apparatus space to accommodate the future larger apparatus, because apparatus are just getting larger and larger, and they have essentially 10 by 12 foot doors. 14 by 14 is the standard now. It's been a standard for 25 years. We would have to essentially reduce the bays from a 3-bay to a 2-bay and raise the roof structure in order to get bigger doors in. We'd have to add a building, the tornado shelter, since that was put into code in 2017. Then in 2024, we'll have to meet the Ohio Building Code energy efficiency standards, which will mean more wall and roof insulation and more efficient mechanical equipment, which means, replacing the existing. And then, because it's an essential facility by the building code, we have seismic and requirements. So for earthquake resistance and higher wind loads, we have to then reinforce the structure for that. So to do all those things, in addition to what was recommended in 2010, I'm comfortably feeling, and with Pepper's backing here, that we're looking at $5.5 million to $6 million in 2024, because Station 81 is scheduled to be built in 24. And the downside is that we would address the maybe 80% of all those factors I showed you we'd get maybe about 80% of what we're trying to maintain in terms of the goals we're trying to reach with a new building. You're going to spend really more money and get less in terms of value. So another major consideration is how to maintain the service levels while you're doing a major renovation. Station 81, everything I talked to you about is considered a major renovation. It would put that building out of service. You'd have to have a construction trailer of some kind or a crew trailer. You'd have to move the apparatus to another location temporarily. So those are all costs that would be part of renovating an existing station to that level. So we're proposing that the new Station 81 would be about $5.1 million, and you get 100% of the code requirements, all the design fundamentals, everything addressed. So our recommendation is stay the course and build a new fire station relative to trying to renovate Station 81. Station 83, which is your headquarters, interesting location for this station. You know, it shares an entrance, major entrance and exit with Cliffs, and there's constant semi-traffic coming in and out of that intersection. Semis are not the fastest moving vehicles. We've got response time that every second counts with EMS and apparatus trying to leave that site day in and day out, competing with that traffic. It would be on the last, if I was going to recommend a site, this would probably be in my last list just because of of that location. Now, that being said, I see some of my color got mixed up a little bit here, so so the blue, the way the station is designed, and I know you can't see my pointer. Let me see if I can use this. Here we go. So this station is the apparatus or bays are in the center, so it's kind of what I call a bookend station. Has apparatus bays in the middle. There's support space on one end and support space on the other end. So the yellow was supposed to be over top the center, and the two blue were the bookends. So that's how that site is set up, and the building is set up. So the program requirements for this station, and so let me go back to 2010 first of all. That study recommended elements to be done to basically give it 15 more years of useful life. And that at that time, the cost in today's dollars were $5 million to about $5.6 million. So that building currently is 12,700 square feet, which is roughly half the size of the new station that we're proposing. And that is because our new station has a lot more requirements in terms of the number of staffing, adding a training facility, the headquarters, everything in an extra bay. That all is what makes up our current program. So we're starting at half the size of what we need. We can only feasibly add about another 6,000 square feet due to the site constraints, which will yield what I would consider a maximum of about an 18,000 square foot building. So right off the bat, we can't meet all the programmatic requirements of the new station headquarters. So we would have to demolish the two bookends to add a fifth new apparatus bay. So we would have to remove 5,000 square feet to add another 1,600 square feet. We could construct maybe a new single-story addition to the north end of the building on that one bookend, which is about 3,000 square feet. We could construct a new two-story addition to the south end, and that would need an elevator. That'd be about 6,000 square feet. So that's how we get up to that 18. And we would have to add the building code required tornado shelter, meet all the energy efficiency standards, and then of course meet the essential facility requirements for seismic and the higher wind loads. So those are all the things we've got to look at in a renovation. So this, again, my coloring is off here, but the yellow would be the apparatus bays, the red would be new addition to the north, and the pinkish color here would be the two-story piece, because again, we're limited. This is a very narrow site that the drive comes in. We could extend the parking, but there's really no real feasible way to add more square footage to this site other than what I'm proposing here. So everything I just went over, about $8.5 million to about $9.5 million in 2024 costs. So we're looking at about 65% of the code and design fundamentals that we're actually trying to hit with spending almost the same amount. So new station 23, the new station is 23,200 square feet, 10.5 million. We're getting 100% of the code, program, and design fundamentals addressed for almost the same amount of money. So Again, major consideration, how do we maintain the service levels of that station? Because that would be an absolute major renovation of everything I just described. So our recommendation, stay the course and build a new fire station. Much better value. This is all about value, what you're going to get for the dollars being spent. The final item, the delaying the building, delaying and building 3 out of the 4 stations. I'll just give you a little background. And these are numbers based on my experience of building fire stations for 25 years. In 2006, stations were $150 a square foot. In 2011, they were $185 a square foot. You can see 2018, $258. 2023, we're now at $410 a square foot, 273% increase since 2006. More than twice the average rate of inflation in the United States since 2009. So the cost of waiting to build a station for just say 3 years, if we waited, we're at 453 essentially for 2023, 2024, we would be at 552 for an average increase of about 1.1 million. I'm being conservative there. So the cost of waiting is $1 million plus. Your competition is, in terms of other projects that are happening, that's what's controlling these, that's what's causing and triggering a lot of this inflation to be so much higher than, say, the consumer price index, is because you've got other mega projects in this area. It's not the other fire stations that are happening. It's going to be the Renaissance point. It's Intel and Amazon, $28 billion in Central Ohio. Those markets are close enough that it affects the labor pool, and labor is one of the biggest elements that we're talking about. Material prices are fortunately starting to level off right now, but labor is continuing to be a problem. Honda is spending $4.4 billion in Jeffersonville, and we've got, of course, $1 trillion in federal infrastructure law-related projects that are still going to be happening, and that's concrete, that's steel, that's all the elements that we need to build these stations. So that's all ramping up and getting underway. So time is of the essence. So bottom line is we really recommend to stay the course and build the first fire station in 2024 because of everything that we've gone over. So does anybody have any questions on any of that information? I went through it pretty fast.
You have a question?
Yes.
What triggers complying with new building code? Is it a renovation? Is it, even if you don't do anything, you're required to comply with it? Is it new construction? Where's that?
Yeah, so anytime you touch any area of the existing building, we have to then bring that space up to current code. So if you're not planning on doing anything and not touching that area, then it's grandfathered in the code. So unfortunately, with everything I've gone over, we're touching every aspect of the buildings, in order to address as many of our concerns or many of our goals as we're trying to do. So it triggers things. Now, when it comes to renovating with like the tornado shelter, for example, and the need for that, if we start touching any of the living quarters of the building, any of the major elements that affect the occupant load of the building, then the tornado shelter requirement is kicked in, and we have to meet that. So, and that's a big chunk, that we're looking like anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 depending on how it's integrated. Integrating a tornado shelter in an existing building is very difficult relative to building one brand new, because you have to essentially build a building within a building, and I have to have a structural engineer that's willing to certify that the construction of that tornado shelter is going to work when you have a 250-mile-an-hour EF5 tornado coming through. The only way to do that is they have to be able to certify the new construction portion. It'd be impossible to find somebody that would say the existing building would meet those requirements. So you end up building a building within a building, and it's very expensive. So what we're at this point in time, we're at, hold on, I'm going backwards. I really going to go back here. So as I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to have Tony give us some more details, we have the hard bids on all the 4 sites that are in now, and we've got a trusted site contractor that Pepper's worked with a lot. That's one contractor is able to build all 4 sites, and we've got the early purchase of the emergency generators, which are on budget, and early purchase of the air handling equipment, which we believe is under budget. So, as I mentioned, the site work's scheduled to commence on September the 1st at this point. To keep things all working in the schedule that's been laid out here, that we commenced on in September of last year. So I'm going to turn this over to Tony and have him touch on some points.
I got a whole bunch of
Okay.
great scribble notes here. You know, I just wanted to speak to the, you know, our confidence in where we were at last time we were up here. We're on track. You know, we've talked about the schedule. Tim's team's hitting the dates with the development
Pull
drawings.
that mic a little bit closer. I'm seeing some people reaching.
Can you hear me now? From schedule standpoint, we're on track. The app architecture team's hitting the design development drawings, got us the construction drawings for the early release packages, which we have up on the board. Those budgets have come in under from where we were previously. The rest of the project is still on track for the budgets that we talked about. You know, the inflation index from 2016 to 2019 was about 3.56 in our industry. From 2019 to 2023, we were at about 5.8%, and we had a high of 12.2. But it's not going to go down. You know, historical is about 2.3 to 2.4. We're coming out. I think we're cooling, but it's not going to go backwards, and it will not go down. You know, a lot of it's based on what we're seeing from the Amazons and those folks that are investing in our communities. You know, we are at a point now where GMP 1, you know, with the sites and the different pre-purchase materials, we're getting ready to finalize that and bring that over. Still looking for other areas to save costs, whether that be saving on how much soil we bring out of the buildings and the pads and all that. But, you know, we have gotten hard bids from subcontractors that will only last for so long before we will have to rebid and get those numbers with the potential to then be over budget. So really just wanted to speak to the confidence in what Tim presented up here and just give you an update on where we were. So I'll open it up for any questions you may have for our team.
No questions?
Any other?
We thought you were going to come in and say they were half off, but
I'm working on it.
buy one, get one.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Tim, and those dates up there, I wasn't sure what you meant by those dates up there. So you need a hard answer from us by when? The meeting in August is August 1st, and the second meeting is August 15th, correct, Amy?
Yes.
Right, yes. So I don't know, the 8th and the 22nd are off,
Okay.
so.
Well, then, that's even better, actually, because so the August 1st would be, it depends on how you would do the readings on that GMP one, if you could
Okay.
do a single reading or two readings, so my two dates really.
So we can take all this information, discuss it more, let council think about it a little bit, and first meeting in August, we'll be ready to have something put forward.
Because again,
Is council okay with that?
I mean, I think we all understand we got to decide.
Yeah.
Is that,
Did you want to talk about this now or under new business or?
I mean, I feel like if we're going to talk about it now, it'd be the best time. We've got the experts
Yeah.
here, and we're on the topic.
If I may speak, you know, I understand, and I've had conversation with the manager and the fire chief, and I'm sure we all have, about these and what's going on. And one thing I will say is I perfectly understand where Councilman Farrell addressed that, and I understand that because our job is to monitor dollars and looking at the dollars of what was generated or what was expected as opposed to what the actual cost is was a lot different. And anytime you're looking at a $10 million difference, I mean, that's a big number, and we have to really look at that because if we don't, we're not doing our jobs. We weren't elected to just rubber stamp everything, and that's the thing. But so I understand, and I know how Councilman Farrell is with money. He didn't get to where he was by not looking at money and making sure it's done right. My personal opinion on this is, although I do understand that, I think we sold this levy by telling the public we're going to build 4 stations And I think one of the problems with that is if we go back on that, even if we renovate one, that goes against kind of what we did. The hard part is what Councilman Farrell said, he's correct. I mean, where are we going to get the money? At this point, you know, it's like we're going to have two projects, the Renaissance project and the fire stations, and if we have to throw all of our ARPA dollars on that, and I don't know how the rest of council feels, but maybe so be it. But I personally don't want to go against what people voted for, although I understand where Zach's coming from. I mean, that's $10 million. You have to discuss it and you have to give options, and I'm not saying that he's incorrect at all, because I looked at that too, but I think at this point, we owe the community at least the 4 fire stations that we said we were going to build. And that's just my personal opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right. There's 5 of us up here. But I looked at what Zach's numbers was, and I understand fully. I do. That's a huge difference, man. And we got to find it. But I also don't want to, because the bad part about being here for years, as I've seen what's happened on other levies like the public safety years ago, where I know that we told the public we're going to increase staffing, we're going to do this, and we didn't do any of it. When I say we, I meant 15, 20 years ago. And I know Paul was a fire member then, and we made promises to the public, and they weren't kept by the city. And I think I don't want to have that happen here. And that's just my opinion. But Zach, I commend you for at least putting out there you had the guts to do it, because it needed addressed, because we did not expect $10 million over. That's insane. But I just, in good conscience, can't vote to not build 4 new stations. Just my personal opinion.
I've gone back and forth on this and back and forth on this, and it's a tough situation, and I hope every citizen understands this is not where we want to be financially with the decision to make. In fact, I'm sure all of you in your personal lives are finding the same issues. Inflation isn't just hitting fire stations, it's milk and eggs and gas and everything. So I think everyone can be understanding of the fact that there's no wrong comments or suggestions being made. It's just we have to at some point make a decision. I know things like this. This makes me get back to what is the role of government, right? What are we here to do? And sometimes we have to really buckle down and say, okay, the role of government, and I think Abraham Lincoln said it, it's to do for citizens what they can't do for themselves. And when we look at it that way, sometimes we look at the nice to haves in our city, and as badly as we want to have them, we can, as citizens, do those things if we collectively work towards them privately. And something like fire stations, we can't do on our own as citizens. So, I think Mr. Muterspaw is trending in the right direction. I also, though, as I mentioned to Zach earlier this week, I said, I don't want any debt. I just had a whole day where I said, no debt. We're not going into any debt. We're building. It's whatever we can afford, that's it. So I'm kind of on the emotional roller coaster financially, but I'm starting to think, this presentation is very helpful. Of course, we have to see that. We have to understand the logic behind it. And it's starting to not make sense financially not to build them, right? And so where do we make those hard decisions? But in my mind, I'm starting to now lean back towards we have to build them all, and look at the nice to haves and not get mad when we can't have some of the nice to haves, but how do we dig deep and come up creatively as a city with doing a lot of the nice to have things without spending all the money doing them. And I think we all do that in our own lives. We figure out, okay, we want to go on vacation. We maybe can't afford that expensive cruise. Can we do a staycation and have a lot of fun? And sometimes we realize we can, and actually is a lot more fun. So I'm kind of just looking at that and decision-making wise where we have to be, and that's where I'm trending right now. I don't know, tomorrow maybe I'm on the other side of the financial roller coaster, but the logic's starting to really come along to me that we have to do them. And I do want to comment on the promising of the citizens, because I've been all over the map on that one too. The levy language, of course, just to clarify to everyone, the levy language said that the money was to build fire stations. What was the term? Do you have it?
Like construction or something along, it didn't
Yeah,
specify.
so it didn't specify for, not that anyone was trying to be
that's fine.
misleading. I want to make sure everybody understands that. It was actually done intentionally because you never know what's going to happen with the market, and we didn't want to overpromise with levy language. Now, that being said, I know informally, outside of the actual ballot, there was a lot of discussion, here in council, on YouTube, in meetings where the number 4 came from city leadership, and so it was communicated to the public, a number 4 in a lot of areas, just not specifically on the ballot. But I do want to.
That's a great point.
I want to clarify, there was never an intent to mislead the public on that. I don't think anybody saw these inflationary numbers coming to anywhere near this extent. So I don't think anyone would argue that on this side, but I hope the citizens understand that as well. So anyway, okay. moving on.
I also want to piggyback on that, just in terms of the financial situation that we happen to be in, and staff's persistence and creativity in trying to find ways for us to be able to fill this gap and still deliver the 4 stations that we, as a council and as staff, had promised to the people. So I know that we don't have a final answer necessarily on that. We got the email from Paul that sort of laid out how we could potentially fill the gap. But I don't know if staff has anything additional to add or to clarify.
The big
on
decision
that.
for us there is, are we going to finance it 100%, which could be done by the money that's going to free up at the end of this year for other debt services, or do we use a combination of that and ARPA dollars and or general fund dollars? That, if we go with the 4 stations, that's the decision the council will have to make.
For 4 stations, we would have to dip into that debt service regardless.
Yeah, so we have approximately 650,000
we
coming
have-
free at the end of this year. So we would use about 600,000 of that
We'd
to
be up
finance
about,
it 100%.
if you looked at it from our general fund debt service right now, we have 2 issues coming off. That's a little bit, around 665, I believe. With a conservative interest rate guess, if we were to bond this out before the end of the year, for the full worst-case scenario, we go into the mid-$9 million range. You're looking at about 600,000 a year. So from a general fund cost burden standpoint, that's something that's already modeled and baked in. I think Mr. Moon has pointed out that's an opportunity cost in the future because those dollars could have been reprogrammed. But it also leaves you maximum flexibility in that that's a worst-case financing option in terms of leveraging debt to where you don't have to touch any ARPA dollars. I think based on, discussions with council members of things that, may also be requested in the 24 budget, our ability to dip into the general fund reserve for this may hamper other ideas. So, I think from staff standpoint, the financing, the burden of carrying the financing costs of that gap is very manageable under our current budget structure.
And I think we've discussed these ARPA dollars so many times, and the fact that the ARPA money really should be spent on non-recurring costs. But we've got this opportunity with the ability to have recurring costs, i.e. more officers, police, fire, all of that. That's the give back.
That's why we had
use
one of
this
those
money.
options on that. And, and I think we're going to hear tonight, we do need more police officers. We're seeing a problem with crime in Middletown. We're seeing, toughness in areas of mandating officers for overtime. So we know that we're going to have to address it immediately here, especially for 2024. And so, is it a matter of we use some ARPA dollars towards the station, and then that will free up some of this debt service money to go towards the ability to get our authorized strength in the police department up to where it needs to be.
And these are one-time
But if you don't have any
costs.
money to do that, it's called public safety, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, but
And we're not it just doesn't match.
Well, and then understand too, there's other employee costs. We have contractual obligations in all of our collective bargaining ranks and in our non-collective bargaining ranks for 2024.
So I'll
Yeah,
jump
we're
in
not
here.
freeing up any more money. So
2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I was very interested in seeing what a renovation would cost. And then a couple months before that, when we first started seeing these costs explode, I said to staff, hey, I want all the options, good, bad, and indifferent. I want to see all the good options. I want to see all the bad options, and we can assess them. I feel like finally today we've actually seen all of those options as opposed to just kind of being able to talk about it and not see real numbers. For me, my head was never really in a space where I didn't want to either have 4 stations that were either new or like new, as opposed to delaying one off. So I would say I'm trending in the direction of just getting all 4 done. But I do want to stick up for Zach, because I suspect he took some arrows this week. And just to be clear, Zach was never suggesting that we not spend every dollar from that levy on fire stations. And in fact, he was advocating for spending several million dollars above the levy on fire stations. He was just trying to be creative and say, what could we do with these extra dollars that could also be useful? So I think your heart was in the right place, and I commend you for taking that risk. So I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, I think we need to get 4 done. Like I said, I was interested in renovating one, but it seems to be tonight that renovating is more expensive than building new. So I really don't want to punt this for another council to deal with or never get to.
When it comes to use of ARPA dollars, I'm all for using personally as much as we can, because again, I don't want to go into any more debt than we have to.
Okay.
But I did go back and read all of the staff reports, all of the communications of when we first approved the levy language, and it was very clear in the staff report in the workbook from Mr. Palaniuk. It said absolutely, unquestionably, no use of ARPA funds can be made for these fire stations. At which point we said, well, okay, they said that about the CARES Act money, and then it changed the rules again, but he was very, very adamant that we could not use ARPA fund dollars.
He told Zach and I that too in a meeting.
So has that changed? Are we able to, or are we going to have to shift?
I'll let our expert legal guy, Brody, answer that. Thank you, Brody.
Look over my shoulder. So I would have to go back and look at exactly what was said, but taking what you said, I don't think that's entirely true. I think these are allowable expenses for ARPA dollars. So we have to allocate it to certain costs within the total 26 and some odd million, but I do think it would be certainly an allowable cost.
And Tim, I think you're dealing with a lot of fire stations in cities who are indeed using ARPA dollars to build the fire stations.
Yeah, that's correct. I wanted to just offer up the city of Springfield. We're doing 4 stations for them. They are spending about the exact same amount of money that we're proposing here. So, and they are allocating ARPA funds. So if you haven't had the conversations with the city manager up there, you could, I would suggest that you do that just so you understand how they're able to do that. So, and I think just to bolster some of the points that you made, in this business, when I work with public entities such as yourselves, these projects only happen when the alignment of lots of different things all come together. You have to have the right people, kind of to the points that were made earlier. It's the right people in the right places with the right ideas, with the right, this is what I would call in the business world a BHAG, right? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Somebody said at some point the council made the decision that you're going to build 4 stations. That study was the beginning of that. And so, we're here to help you realize that BHAG, right? And it's scary, it's a big goal. It's audacious, right? But it's for the good of this community and the public safety. It's an investment, right, into the future of Middletown and people having the care that they need at the right time. So every community I'm working with practically is dealing with the same issues that you are. Everybody's trying to understand how to comprehend, deal with these massive increases that we've seen, but they're managing, and I appreciate everyone's comments and support tonight. So thank you. Any other questions for me?
No, just one more comment, and because it seems like all the staff seats have changed over the last 3 years, and everybody's sitting in different seats. I did want to remind staff that The last council did pay off the debt on all the lights for the express purpose of helping pay down debt on these fire stations. So there's several $100,000 that we paid off for this reason that should build into this train of thought.
Okay. And the only other thing I might, option, if everybody here tonight gives $1 towards the Powerball tonight and agrees to, if the win is.
I already got about 12 other uses for that.
Well, shows you how often I play the Powerball. So it's an option, I think. No, so what I'm hearing is we're pretty much under agreement to proceed with the building of 4 fire stations, and then I'll get my finance guy on looking at the options here to bring towards the first meeting in August for council to proceed.
Yeah, I think if council's amenable, I think what we can do is for the upcoming council meeting in August is, I don't want to be too cute about this, but to give you a kind of a bingo card of here's the 3 or 4, 5 options in terms of the financing of the gap to, I think, help you folks gel together as to what you feel is the best path.
On a positive note, I do feel like Mr. Farrell made a comment recently that I appreciated. It was that we are starting to catch up on some capital improvements that had been neglected for a long time as a city. And as painful as it is, we are making some strides there that I'm proud of this staff and the citizens and council for doing. So it's painful along the way, but we are getting there and we're making some really good improvements. So.
Yeah, the new city HVAC, $2.9 million, new generator for the city building, $2 million to the parks. These are things that, not necessarily ignored on purpose, but we just haven't had the money, and we're finally getting to the point of having the money. So it is exciting overall.
Just drive down our streets.
Yeah.
And it did come at a cost to our citizens with 2 levies, so not downplaying that either. Like, the citizens are absolutely 100% responsible, and we're grateful for your willingness to contribute and catch up on some of these capital improvements that we need.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. Council, next on the city manager reports. My final thing of the night is we have some representatives from the Warren County Community Services to give a presentation tonight on their operations, and I apologize. It took a while to.
They're not coming tonight.
I'm not sure.
They're not coming.
Are they here?
No, they're not coming.
Oh, they're not coming.
I got an email that they're not coming tonight. They'll come another night.
Okay, I apologize. I apologize. So that's good. That means my city manager report is completed, and we're ready to move on.
You're replacing the minimal legislation with the longest city manager report ever. So.
I know. I
see how that works.
Yeah. Lost the record.
Yep, I got excited
50 minutes ago.
Tonight. We do just have 2 items on the legislative agenda for you all. I would ask, the first item is a second reading emergency, so I would ask for a motion to waive the charter requirements requiring 30 days to enactment for this second reading emergency for ordinance number O-2023-56.
I'll move that ordinance number O-2023-56 be considered an emergency, read one time only, and waive the 30 days to enactment.
Second?
Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, great. We'll go to ordinance number O-2023-56, an ordinance authorizing the amendment of a contract with Milcon Concrete Incorporated for improvements to Central Avenue between Canal Street and University Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
I have nothing further to add.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item number 2 is ordinance number O-2023-57, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Bricks Incorporated to purchase a fire station alerting system. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
I have nothing further to add.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to new business. Does anyone have any items for new business?
I do, Mayor. If you guys would give me about 5 minutes, I wanted to address some things. And usually I don't take notes when I speak, I just wing it, but I wrote notes because this is important and I didn't want to leave anything out. And I did some public record requests, and I haven't received those yet. I know staff's busy, and I only requested them 5 days ago or whatever, so that's probably why I didn't get them. I want to talk about staffing, and this is really talking to staff. And Paul and I go back a long time, so we've had these conversations for a long time, and probably telling staff and council nothing they don't know. But you know, the staffing around the city building, we know due to recession and everything in the past, 2008, 2009, we lost a lot of staffing. I've brought up 100 times that when I was hired in 1990, that the police department had 93 officers, and everybody's short. I know Public Works is short, the fire department's short, IT, I mean, everybody is short, and it's nobody's fault. We just haven't had the money. We haven't had the money to do anything. So, but years ago, I had a lieutenant tell me when I was a sergeant, and he was kind of my mentor, and we went from 93 officers to 85, and then we went from 85 to 80, then we went from 80 to 75. And at that point, he told me one night on midnight shift, he said, you know, the dam is going to break. The city doesn't understand it. The dam is going to break with crime. You cannot keep dropping officers and not replacing them, and there be no consequences. Well, we're here at that tipping point. It's everybody I talk to, and I've talked to a lot of people over the last year, 2 years, people on Franklin Street, Queen, Hill, Pershing, Roslyn. The number one complaint that they have, or the number one thing they have with the city, is they just don't feel safe. We all want aquatic centers, pools, Hollywood land, hoopla. Those are great things, you know, things that are great for a city. They're the shiny objects. But the fact is people don't feel safe. Feeling safe is not a privilege, it's a right. And when we can't provide that as a city, that's as important as somebody's water service. And when people can't go outside, or their kids can't ride bikes, they can't go out in the street, they can't go to the park because there's needles everywhere, or there's something bad happening. There's so many good things in the works here. You saw it tonight. It's amazing what's going on in this city. My goodness. We finally have a city manager that gets it. We're doing great things, but people don't feel safe. And that's one of the issues. And municipalities, the general rule in municipalities over time, regardless of where you're at, will tell you that they say, well, when you build economic development, we will add officers, or we'll add medics, we'll add firemen. And we need tax revenue to do that. Well, what happens when that tax revenue doesn't come, and it's 20 years later, and now we're down to 73 police officers? We need to change that mindset that this is not a luxury. Police is not a luxury. It's a requirement for people to feel safe in their city. And right now, we don't have that. We have police officers, and the manager knows this. He gets it too, but we have police officers that are overworked, underpaid. They're mentally stressed. I talk to these officers all the time. You can see it on their faces. They're just spent. They're done. We hear a lot about specialty positions in police departments. And if those who don't know what specialty positions are, they're your SROs, your school resource officers, your special operations, which is your narcotic or your vice unit, detectives. And I hear a lot, you know, well, we need to put those back on the street. Can't do it. They're the ones with their finger in the dam keeping the water coming through. We can't do it. So when you take people out of special operations, who's going to handle the fentanyl coming in the city? Patrol can't do it. They don't have the time. And even if they do, they don't have the investigative ability to do that. So when you want to pull these officers and put them on the street because the street badly needs them, because patrol is the backbone of any police agency in America. Without the visibility of patrol, every research and study has shown this. Patrol is a backbone, but you got to have the investigative units. So if we take the investigative units out and put them on the street, all that fentanyl that our inept federal government is allowing to come into our country is coming down I-75, it's going to bloom even bigger. So that's not an option. The only option is to hire more police officers, bite the bullet as a city, and stop counting police as a luxury and make sure people understand it's a right and it's a requirement to feel safe. And we add them. I know the city does not have the money to throw 10 officers out there right now, but under the FBI study that we did a few years back, I think it was in the mid-80s. I could be wrong, and I wish I had it in front of me, but if we hire 7 officers, 3 this year, 4 next year, we're at 73, and we put them at 80, that's much better than what we have now, because that's 7 more bodies on the street. I can tell you I live by the high school. I've been blessed in life. I haven't not had a police officer on my street in a long time, and it's not their fault. I know the chief staffs the best he can. He's got to put people in these specialty positions to stop the influx of drugs coming into our city, because guys, that's our number one problem, is the drugs coming into our city. And it's not weed, I'm talking bad drugs. And we have to change the mindset as a city, and this is nobody's fault, guys. This is, as a city, we have to change the mindset that, well, we'll get to the police when we get more revenue. It's not acceptable. We have to hire more people. I mentioned the officers being mentally and physically shaken down. One of the reasons I requested public records, I requested several. One was discipline. Another was the staffing reports for the last year or whatever. I wanted to show people what happens when you have a system where officers are overworked, exhausted, and they're getting held 3-4 times a week. Every shift is holding the officers, 3-4 times a shift at times. There's red flags. That's where your discipline comes from, when officers cannot get a break, when they're missing their kids' ball games and their family stuff. Same with the fire department and public works. When you're missing your family stuff and people say, well, you signed up for it. No, they didn't. They did not sign up to be mentally broken down over a career. And trust me, I know. And I'm just going to be very candid and speak personally. I never drank alcohol until I became like a police sergeant. When I was a police chief, I had to go get help. I had to see a therapist for drinking as a police chief. So I can imagine what our police chief and what our police officers are going through now. And all I'm asking the city to do is please consider over the next few years to bring them up to 80 officers. Give the chief the people that he needs and the backup that they deserve to get things done. That's something that I'm passionate about. I'm a one-term council member. I've said that over and over. I have 2 years left. And my whole goal the next 2 years is to get our public safety up where it needs to be. Police and our protection of our kids and our grandchildren, that's an investment. It's not a cost. In government, we have a bad habit, and I've done it myself when doing budget years ago. We have a bad habit of looking at officers and firemen as dollars. It's not dollars, it's an investment. We need them. Because, guys, we're at a tipping point in this city. We're doing so many good things. It's incredible what's going on in our city. And there's stuff going on right now that the manager didn't go over tonight because, I don't think the public is privy to it yet because there are disclosures and things. But there's so many good things going on. And if we have a safer city, people want to stay here and be here. The big event center and all that's going on, do you think people's going to come to that if they don't feel safe? So this is an investment in our people and our officers and our community, and the community deserves it. They demand it, and I know we have a great council up here that is pro-public safety, but I think we're past the point of saying, well, we don't have the money. We need to find the money. We need to make it work, because it's not fair to the community, and it's not fair to the police officers, and it's not fair to the police chief. So we have to give them every opportunity to the community to feel safe, and the officers to know they have support from the top and that they're going to have bodies on the street. It's like the SROs. When I first heard about the SROs, I was like, my goodness, do we need 6 SROs or whatever it is? I was like, good grief, Mike Davis did it by himself for years. It's a different world than when Mike did it, and Mike was the best. He was the best. Nobody was better than Mike Davis. But it's a different world. What we're seeing now is your criminality that's brazen. They don't care what you think. They don't care if officers show up. That's why we need to have that visibility out there, and we need these officers to know that they're appreciated and that we're going to get them the help that they need. I'm sorry for being on my soapbox, but I'm very passionate. I love it here. I live here. We all do. And I just want people to understand that we have a safe city. We just need to do better in doing that. Thank you, Mr. Lally.
And I did want to add that this past Friday, we had a labor management meeting with the FOP, and I want to commend the police chief and his administrative staff, the FOP, their union leadership. Dan Hill's retired Cincinnati police officer. I think we came up with some very good plans Monday of things or Friday that we implemented immediately. Chief Burke implemented immediately that would alleviate some of the officers concerned about the mandatory holdover on overtime. We've addressed those. We have a little bit of ways to go. We're going to sit down with them again and bring some things to council that I think will be good for the city. We want to address the downtown problem, the homeless problem in downtown, the homeless problem out in the encampments. We have some ideas, and we'll be bringing those forward. And I appreciate Councilman Muterspaw really taking the bull by the horn and kind of forcing both groups together. I think Friday was a very, very meaningful meeting and a good step in the right direction, but we do have ways to go.
And one thing I'd like more to add, and maybe I mentioned it, but we don't have to hire a bunch right now. That's not what I'm saying. But if we could do 3 2024, I know it's budget time coming up, 4 more 2025, something to get us to that 80 mark. That's still maybe 8 below the FBI standard. But that's doable and that's workable, and I think we can do that. But that's up to staff to make that happen.
If I could just chime in, because I completely agree with you. I actually think we have the money to do it right now. I think it would have been a lot more challenging 4, 6, 8, 12 years ago. But, we've heard over and over again how long it takes to hire and vet and background check and then get them into service. I would be supportive of starting that process now. We, have about half the year left. It's going to take that long to even get them in there. So if we...
Yeah, and that process is underway. Yes, it is.
So... Short story, I'm fully supportive of doing that in the 24 budget, and if we can move it up, then I'm supportive of that too.
Thank you, Tal.
I agree, especially if staff thinks that we have it in the budget to be able to do that now and that they can work that into next year. I'm also supportive.
Thank you.
And I think that's what we're going to be bringing forward to here in the very near future.
Well, and I think we all know our property taxes are getting increased in Butler County, so why not give it back to the people?
Yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, people say all the time, council and previous councils have promised this and said we're going to make it better. But action is really what we're talking about and making it happen. So.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Any other new business? I have one that seems really inconsequential after that one, but it might be an easy win. I wanted to bring up blade signs in the city. I think it was a year or 2 ago, we updated the development code to disallow blade signs. I have gotten a lot of complaints from especially small businesses who want to put up very nice, brand new, good-looking signs and actually have gotten code violations for it, of course, because it is not valid in the city. I would like to revisit that, and instead, I looked at the development code, and actually there's code that doesn't allow for, tattered, torn, faded signs, and to me, that's good enough. And if we can just enforce that code, then the people who are wanting to put nice-looking blade signs outside their businesses and maintain them can do so if we were to remove that. There's not many cities that don't allow them. I'm not sure. I kind of hesitated at the time, but I thought, okay, sounds good. But now I'm getting a lot of complaints from small businesses, and I agree. I think they're nice enough.
I would be curious to hear from staff why they decided to put that in and what precedent presented that made them feel like that was important.
Yeah, I think I recall at the time it was that they were seeing a lot of tattered, torn ones that just were staying up for a long time, and I think that we maybe put the wrong Band-Aid on that.
Is that my understanding that it was around 2018 and council at that time wanted to see the blade signs abolished in the city of Middletown?
I was going to ask you, Tal, because you've been on the longest, because to be honest, not to sound awkward, but does that staff still exist here that put that in place?
That came up through planning commission.
Ashley,
Staff is still
Ashley
here,
and Deborah were here at that time, and
Okay.
it did come up through planning
I
commission,
don't
so
remember
it was
that being
recommended.
council-driven.
Is that what
I remember it
Glenn's
being
Barbecue had in
recommended
front, and he
from-
had to take them down? Were there those big, like, that go in the wind, kind of?
No, they're, I like to draw it. It has like a pole, and then it's like a feather. It looks like a feather
Oh, I know what
almost.
you're talking
kinda.
about, yeah.
Like an open
Yeah.
house sign, Rodney.
Like a what?
An open house sign.
An open house sign.
They are all over the city right
Oh,
now.
that's
I mean,
it.
there's a lot of places which are right around the city building, by the way, that have them up,
That's-
that haven't gotten code violations, yet others are being seemingly, they feel targeted. It's just, I don't feel like it.
Once again, nobody's being targeted. We
I know
get to
they're
them
not.
as we can, and
I know.
we have
but I
five nuisance
just-
abatement individuals, and
They're prevalent. I think they look fine. I don't have any issues with them, and they're.
if council wants us to address that, we'll bring it back.
I don't have a strong feeling. I went with it because that was the recommendation of our planning commission, and it went through the whole process. So if we're gonna undo it, I would want it to go back through the process.
Yeah, if we can just figure
Yeah.
out why they wanted it eliminated and figure out what was the negative side that they were causing, then I'm open to it.
Well, I mean, I think that the issue is with the temporary signs just in general, that tend to get left out and become tattered. And even though they look nice when they're new, it doesn't take long for them to not look new anymore.
Right, but there's
And these-
already code for that, right?
Sure,
So-
sure.
it's worth
I would be
revisiting.
interested in hearing from the citizens, because I hear we're getting the small business owner's perspective, right? Like, they're just trying to
Right.
advertise for their business. But from a citizen perspective, they're the ones driving down the street and looking at these signs and looking at the tattered signs and all of these sort of things. So I would be curious if any of the citizens have any strong feelings about whether or not they think we should be allowing blade signs.
And then we get into what's tattered and what's not, and then you gotta
Right, we're-
enforce
Yeah.
that.
If it's a rule across the board that they're not allowed at all, then you're not getting into the issue of them being tattered and torn and not looking nice. And I think that was probably the goal, if I'm thinking back to the conversations that we had with staff about what, and with planning commission about why we disallowed them in the first place.
Sure, and I definitely don't want to get rid of the development code about tattered and torn signs. That definitely needs to stay. I'm not.
I just have maybe a clarifying question, if that's all right. So the blade sign, what I think of blade sign traditionally is like attached to a building that's kind of like points out, right? So it's like you're talking about like the temporary things you would put in the ground that kind of say barbecue or whatever.
Yeah, and I think there's
I think
actually
a
a
blade-
photo.
Yeah,
I
it's
think a
natural,
blade
it
sign
comes
is-
up and it is, like she said, like a feather.
Yeah, I just want to,
Feather banner
I'm
is
just
what
making
you're
sure I'm
probably
getting my
referring
So I thought the same thing originally,
terminology correct.
but I thought it was always attached to the side of a building, is
Sure.
what I thought, but.
It's there's photos in the development code, I believe, that specify.
Totally, like I said, my brain went to the
Yeah.
Yeah,
on the building, so.
yeah.
No, I think for the open signs that hang on the side of the buildings and whatnot, I think DMI used to give those away to new businesses, so they'd all have brand-new, fresh, open signs, but.
The other piece to it too is, and to Mr. Lawley's point, I think it's incredibly difficult to enforce it because they are so prevalent that they're just, it's going to feel targeted because there's no way our code enforcement can get out to all the blade signs across the state. They're everywhere.
And then also determine whether or not they're torn and tattered.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather I mean, in my mind, like, let's be real. There's a lot of very bad-looking, tattered and torn signs that we can clearly say, okay, that shouldn't be here, right? But targeting the brand-new signs, it just seems a little bit petty.
I think maybe next council meeting, I'll have development services come and give some definitions, blade signs versus feather signs versus projecting signs versus the wind, where you got the
It's all in the.
arms
And then
going
also,
up.
and then also how those are
Yeah.
licensed too, because some signs you have to get licensing for. So, I mean, that adds another whole element to it.
So we'll proceed with that
Okay,
and
I
look
appreciate
into
the
it
thought.
and give you a report next council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Any other new business? Okay, we have a request to move to executive session, buckle in, under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment of a public official and under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G8 to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. 1, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 715, 725, 1724, or 1728, or Sections 701.07, 3735.67 to 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. 2, a unanimous quorum of the public body determines by roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
Good Lord.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes. And I don't think we have any intention of voting on anything. Is that true? Following executive session? So we'll just return back to open session for the sole purpose of closing the meeting back out after that. And our next council meeting is scheduled for August 1st, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. So until then, blue skies over Middletown.
I'll be back.